Welcome back, one and all, to the Boston Celtics Newsfeed, powered by CLNS Media. I'm Mike Walsh, manager of the Celtics Newsfeed, and this is Day 9 of our 2017-18 NBA preview. Again, we'll be going day by day in alphabetical order, releasing a new team preview each day leading up to opening night, October 17th in Cleveland. If it isn't clear so far, we will be holding Golden State, Cleveland, and the Celtics till that final week. Before we get started today, quick note, I wanted to mention the CLNS Media team was all over Celtics Media Day yesterday, and all of our coverage is up at youtube.com/CLNS Media. We'll have continuing coverage on the YouTube page at training camp in Rhode Island and at practice throughout the week. CLNS will also have full coverage of both preseason home games, so subscribe to youtube.com/CLNS Media and you won't miss a thing. Now, these preview podcasts will be accompanied by an outline blog post on our site at clnsradio.com. Today I'll be previewing the Indiana Pacers. Indiana spent much of last season and the summer intertwined with the Celtics throughout that Paul George trade saga. So without further ado, let's get into Day 9 of the Boston Celtics Newsfeed's 2017-18 NBA season preview with the Indiana Pacers. Alright, starting back in 2016-17 last year, the Pacers finished the season 42-40. They earned the number 7 seed in the Eastern Conference playoffs. It was the first year under Nate McMillan as head coach. He was promoted from assistant coach after Frank Vogel's contract was not extended. And they were interesting for a minute there in the playoffs as the 7th seed. They go in, they get swept by number 2 Cleveland. So obviously not super interesting here, but almost grabbed game 1. If you remember, CJ Miles missed that last second shot, which led to some post-game comments from Paul George, which kind of exacerbated the problems with him and whether he would be there for much longer. They wind up losing all 4 games, but only by a combined 16 points, and like I said, that first one, a 1-point loss. So they were in all of those games. They played well. George played well. But as we're going to find out in just a moment, none of that has a whole lot of bearing on what to expect out of the 17-18 Indiana Pacers. A lot of those players are gone. And, I mean, chief among those offseason grades, pretty much the offseason grade you're going to give the Pacers depends on your feelings on that Paul George trade, and right now it is not a good-looking trade. If you don't remember, George, middle of the season, made his plans known that he wanted to play for the Los Angeles Lakers eventually, and he wouldn't be re-signing with anyone else, or would unlikely be re-signing with anyone else. But the Pacers chose to hold on to him through the trade deadline, which really, I think, put a huge damper on what they could expect in a return, because obviously whoever was getting him was now only getting 1 postseason run with him instead of 2. But it kind of goes on, and the Celtics are involved for a long time. They seem to be dead set on getting him in, but the problem is the Celtics needed to also get Gordon Hayward, and I think they needed to get Hayward first in order to fit George in a trade. So Indiana winds up just saying, no, we're not going to wait around for you. They wind up sending him out of conference, so he goes out west. He is traded on June 30th, so right before our free agency began, and the Celtics were able to get Gordon Hayward in. He is traded to the Oklahoma City Thunder, and the return is not quite what Pacers fans were hoping for, and that is they get Victor Oladipo, going into his 5th NBA season, and is on a big contract, I think $21 million for the next 3 or 4 years. And Domantas Sabonis, who had a so-so rookie year last season. Given what the Celtics were potentially offering in terms of first-round picks and players, this is not a great return, and therefore their grade drops significantly. It could go up depending on how Oladipo plays this season, and we'll get into that pretty soon. But big losses here really throughout the offseason. Obviously, Paul George is gone. He's an all-star caliber player. Jeff Teague also gone. He started all 82 games last year for the Pacers, averaged 15.3 points, 7.8 assists, 4 rebounds. He's gone as a free agent, signs with Minnesota. The Pacers sacrifice his rights. And Monte Ellis played over 27 minutes a night last season for the Pacers. He's gone. He was waived early on in the offseason. CJ Miles also opted out of his contract, and he goes to sign with the Toronto Raptors. So really 4 major contributors are gone from last year's playoff team. Elsewhere in the offseason, they don't really move the needle a ton. They draft TJ Leaf. They only had the 18th pick, so they do that and sign him. And they bring in free agents Darren Collison and Bojan Bogdanovic, who both, I believe, will be in line to start this coming season, or at least we'll have first crack at that starting job at the point guard and out on the wing. Some starting players brought in, whether or not they're starting caliber, remains to be seen this coming season. Training camp questions for you here. You're going to be looking at Victor Oladipo. He's the guy to keep an eye on. He's coming out of that, massive MVP shadow of Russell Westbrook, and he sort of did everything last year. It did way too much of everything, and didn't leave a whole lot of table scraps for his teammates, particularly Oladipo, a young guy who was trying to get better in his fourth NBA season. Showed slight improvement throughout the last handful of years. Scoring has gone down a little bit, but also so have shots, and the bonus there is that his field goal percentage has gone up. He had, I think, a career high in that last season. So getting better a little bit here and there. He's going to be looked to, I think, to be more of a first or second option this year, whereas Westbrook was first, second, third option, all that stuff last season for him. He returns to Indiana, where he went to college. The fans are familiar with him, so he's going to get a little bit of support out of the gate, even though he's filling really the hole vacated by Paul George. But he's a guy to look to, fully healthy. Hopefully Lance Stevenson behind him, battling him for that job. I don't know Stevenson, not really a starting caliber player ever in the league, but if he's fully healthy, hey, you never know what could happen. The problem there is going to be Darren Collison and what he looks like running the point. Collison's never been sort of a playoff caliber starting point guard. Just sort of been more of a journeyman at this stage of his career. I think 8 NBA seasons. That's going to be an issue for them and something they maybe should look to correct once we get to the next move to make. Intrigue in the front court, there should be a lot of it in terms of just what fans are looking to get out of this preseason. Miles Turner developing into a legitimate star. You got to hope that happens and pops this year. He's been getting better each year. Domantas Sabonis coming in, competing against a veteran like Thaddeus Young. Maybe even the rookie TJ Leaf competes for some minutes at the 4. When they play small ball with Thaddeus Young there, Sabonis has some of the skills that you would like to see, matched up next to Miles Turner, but we'll see what happens there. And there's even been some Al Jefferson buzz. So Celtics fans, if you miss Big Al, there's some buzz that he's in very, very good shape coming out of the preseason meetings and workouts. So we'll see what happens there. His first year with the Pacers last season wasn't much to talk about. The moves they're going to make, one of the good things about this Indiana team, while Oladipo is, big money for long term, he's really their only guy like that. So the only money they have tied up, I think, beyond next year, other than like some really cheap, rookie type contracts, is Oladipo. And like I said, $21 million, I believe, for the next handful of years. So that's tough, but I think they could maybe try to move a guy like Thaddeus Young if Sabonis can handle it, if TJ Leaf looks good. You have Bogdanovich to play the 4 as well, in sort of small ball stuff, and he can stretch the floor there. So do you try to move a Thaddeus Young? He's a veteran, not really a 3-and-D guy, doesn't shoot a lot of threes, at least hasn't, but if they can sort of jack that and, inflate those numbers, maybe a team sees that, a contender sees that. He has a player option for 2018-19 at just under $14 million, so that's not super appealing for a contender to go after, but there is value in Thad Young. He's been in this league a long time. He's played in some big games, played in the playoffs. So he's a veteran that can bring athleticism and defense to a contender. And if you can move him, bring in, get another pick, maybe bring in potentially a young point guard, take a flyer on somebody, because I don't think Collison is really the long-term answer there either. Gonna pause here, guys. I want to tell you about Bombfell. I personally hate going shopping at department stores for clothes. You got to go into those sketchy dressing rooms. You end up paying way too much money. It takes so much time out of your day. But that's why I love Bombfell. Guys want to look good, and this is an easier way for men to get better clothes. Fill out a simple questionnaire. Bam, your match with your own dedicated personal stylist. They'll pick out each piece just for you. They'll email you the selections, give you 2 days to make any changes or cancel it altogether. You're in total control the entire time. Even after the clothes arrive, you get a full week to decide what you like and want to keep and what you want to send back. Check Bombfell out, hassle-free. Go to bombfell.com. Tell them about yourself, your budget, your measurements. Pick and choose what you're looking for or leave it to that stylist. And of course, shipping is free both ways. And that is not all. Sign up using the promo code Garden Report and get $25 off just for listening to the CLNS Media Network. Again, go to bombfell.com/Garden Report. That's BOMBFELL.com/Garden Report. Now, the Pacers and Celtics will meet 4 times this regular season in the Eastern Conference. The first 2 games are going to be out in Indiana, starting Saturday, November 25th, and then Monday, December 18th. Then they have back-to-back in Boston, Friday, February 9th, and Sunday, March 11th. They'll be at the TD Garden, so get tickets if you're interested in seeing the Pacers. In terms of matchups, you're really just looking at the regular season for these 2 teams, I believe. Has to be a slim possibility that, Oladipo hits, Sabonis improves, Miles Turner becomes a star, and maybe some other stuff hits, and the Pacers sneak in a weak Eastern Conference bottom half. Maybe they sneak into the playoffs in terms of a 1-8, 2-7, a little bit like last year, where the Celtics wind up where they wind up. Even then, I think you're looking at, Miles Turner, a matchup problem for sure, but Al Horford, to me, has proven that he can contend with guys who he gives up athleticism and size, using just sort of his basketball IQ and footwork. And beyond that, Victor Oladipo's a very excellent defender, but I don't think he can handle Kyrie Irving for, that type of series, a playoff series. And then you have Gordon Hayward scoring the basketball. The Celtics will be getting scoring from a bunch of other places, a lot of young athletes, so it's not like the Pacers are going to surprise them there. And it's in terms of scores, the Celtics have 2 elite scorers. I'm not sure the Pacers have even one. Maybe Oladipo proves that he can get, to 20, 25 points a game. That would be a big boost for the Pacers, obviously, but I don't see that happening, and therefore the scoring the Celtics are going to be putting out should be too much for the Pacers to handle. Indiana's trending down right now. Obviously, there's going to be a major drop-off in wins total with, George and Teague leaving. Larry Bird stepped down in the offseason as well. We didn't mention that yet. Still not totally sure. Sold on Nate McMillan as, a long-term solution there at head coach. But that needle could turn around real quick. It could start pointing up as soon as next year if you get something out of Oladipo that you weren't expecting. Miles Turner really steps it up. Then you have, you have 2 promising young talents right now. If you have 2 promising young stars, the burgeoning young stars like Turner and Oladipo could potentially be, that arrow turns around real quick, and you have your own picks. You're not saddled by anything like that. The only big contract you have is Oladipo, and if he proves himself, even kind of worth that contract, then it's suddenly not that bad of a contract. Hey. Final record standings prediction, the Vegas over-under was in the 30s, I think 31 or so. I have them at 25 and 58 on the season, 12th in the Eastern Conference. I just don't see this team winning a ton of games, even in a weak East. Don't have a lot of faith in Derek Collison to run the point, and I think that's a bit of a questionable proposition, given that you need, Turner to develop, you need Sabonis to develop, you need Oladipo to continue developing. Is Darren Collison the guy that can get you there? I'm not sure on that, and what's behind him, even less appealing. Thanks, everyone, for tuning in to Day 9 of the Boston Celtics Newsfeed's 2017-18 NBA preview. Again, you can get more analysis on the CLNSradio.com site and view any of our previous episodes at youtube.com/CLNS Media. There's a playlist set up over there, and that has all of our preview episodes. Follow CLNS on Twitter at CLNS Media and myself at CLNS_Walsh. Be sure to subscribe to the Celtics Newsfeed, rate and review us on iTunes, Stitcher, and of course the CLNS Media Network's mobile podcast app. You're going to want to tune back in tomorrow when I'll be speaking with CLNS Celtics Editor at Large Cory Prescott about what the Los Angeles Clippers look like in the wake of dealing Chris Paul to Houston and losing J.J. Redick to Philadelphia. Until then, though, this is Newsfeed Manager Mike Walsh signing off.